Good afternoon. Good afternoon. As everyone's jumping in, so good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining again for day two. Excited to see you. Hi, Caitlin. How you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah, as you're jumping in, I'd love to see. Hi, Giselle. Nice to see you. I'd love for you to share one takeaway from yesterday. So have a think about yesterday. We covered quite a lot yesterday, and I'd love to hear just one takeaway as we start letting everyone in the room. Here comes Vanessa. Nice to see you. Letting everyone in. Awesome. Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Hope you're having a really good day so far. I'm excited to kick off day two. As you're coming in, I'd love to see you turn your camera on. Obviously, it's really hard talking to just a screen. So when I see your faces, I can see what's resonating and see how it's landing for you. So please, if you can, turn your camera on, that'd be great. That's awesome, Giselle, to hear that you're not feeling so icky about sales. That's great to hear. Sales is an invitation and is a conversation. It doesn't have to be anything other than that. It's just the conditioning or the mindset that we have around it that causes us to feel uncomfortable. And also there's a process. So when we learn the sales process, it's less icky, sleazy, or salesy because you are guiding a client through a decision-making process. You're not pressuring them, you're not convincing them, you're not doing anything untoward or unethical, which is what we want, right? We want the sales process to be comfortable for you and for your customer. So hopefully you took that away from yesterday. Nice to see you, Alex. Nice to see you. Thanks so much for joining us again today. I'd love, yeah, if everyone could jump in the chat and let me know one takeaway from yesterday. Or if you want to turn your mic on and say it out loud, you're more than welcome to do that as well if that's easiest for you. Love you to share any takeaway. What did you take away from yesterday? So a little recap. So we went through the common mistakes that I see a lot of business owners in women in business making when it comes to hitting six figures. We talked about the sales process. We talked about what you're actually selling, and we did a little bit of work around that. So I'd love for you to share any takeaway that you had from yesterday before we dive into day two. Day two is going to be a great one. So make sure that you grab a pen and paper, grab your coffee, put any other distractions away, pop away anything that may distract you or grab your attention because you decided to be here. I'd love for you to give the full attention here so you can make the most out of it. And I'm going to give you my all. I'm going to have my full attention with you here. I'm going to give you my all. I'm going to do Q&A towards the end as well. And anything that comes up throughout the session, we're going to talk about. So yeah, let me know in the chat your biggest takeaways. Or is everyone still like digesting everything from yesterday? Let me know. So today, and actually before we do that, so today what we're going to be covering off, we're going to dive into money mindset and the connection between money mindset and sales. We're going to talk about the mindset shifts we need to have in order to stay confident and focused and resilient in achieving our goals this year and to step in the CEO role. So we want to step away from treating our business like a hobby and we want to be like all in. We're going to talk about comparison to others and developing rock solid confidence in your strategy and gaining the clarity to move forward with certainty and clarity. We're going to talk about packaging your offers, right? We're going to talk about the language, the universal language of value and how to make sure that you're packaging your offers in a way that really resonates with your ideal client so you can stop undercharging and start owning your worth. Does that sound good? Awesome. All right. So I'd love you to jump in the chat and let me know, how do you currently feel about your offers? Now, another way to put offers or using the word offers is basically like you have your service, right, that you deliver, and your offer is how you sell your service. It's how you package it, how you talk about it, how you present it to the ideal client in order to see if it's the right fit for them. So how do you currently feel about your offers? Are you A, I'm not sure what you mean about offers? Are you B, they're okay, but I wish they were selling more? Or C, I'm really clear about my offers, just not promoting them enough. How do you currently feel about your offers? So I've got one C. How about everyone else? Jump in the chat and let me know. Where are you at with your offers at the moment? So I've got another C. Awesome. Yeah, it's a self-promotion piece, right? It brings up all the stuff, and the consistency piece is also that plays into that. How about everyone else? Uncertain. Okay, that's okay. All good. That's what we're here for, to create some more certainty and some clarity, which is awesome. Amazing. How about you, Vanessa and Sarah? I'm also uncertain, Siobhan. Okay, all good. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Appreciate it. Amazing. All right. All righty. So remembering again, there's prizes up for grabs over the 3 days. So thank you for the beautiful ladies that have shared so far and tagged me in their stories of what they took away from yesterday. There is still a chance to be in the draw. I'll be announcing the first two winners tomorrow on tomorrow's live session, and then the third winner, obviously, because after our day 3, I'll announce that on Saturday morning. So feel free to, all you need to do is to be in the draw to win the 3 prizes. So reminding you of the 3 prizes. So you can either win a one-to-one coaching session with me, which is valued at over $650, or you can win access to one of my mini courses, which is my sales and money mindset upgrade, which is how to bring money into your business fast. And my third prize, and have I still got it here? Yes, is a hard copy of 2 of my favorite business books, one of them being the brand new Becoming Magnetic of Erica Kramer's. So feel free, if you'd like to be in the draw to win either of those prizes, then all you need to do is either screenshot something that you see or just share your takeaway. So you can either just be like you talking to the camera on stories, or it can be you just with a bit of text on stories, or if you want to create a post, just make sure you tag me in it so I see it, and that way I can put you in the draw to win some of the prizes. Awesome. All right. So we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about the confident closing methods. This is the method that I teach within my program, Unstoppable Sales. And at the end of our journey together after day 3, I'm going to share with you an opportunity to continue to learn from me as part of my Unstoppable Sales offer. And if that aligns with you, that's amazing. If not, all good. Ideally, I'd love for you to walk away from these 3 days feeling confident, feeling clearer with your sales process, clearer with how you're going to hit 6 figures. And so tomorrow we're going to talk more about strategy, but today is mindset. So we talked a little bit yesterday about the mindset of selling and just understanding the sales process, which obviously fits over here, following an invitational sales process in integrity and authenticity. But this is my confident closing method. So for you to become unstoppable in business, for you to be able to hit your goals, we have to have the right mindset, right? Our mindset impacts our behavior, impacts then the results that we create. So having an abundant mindset, which is what we're going to dive into today, into money mindset, having a mindset around sales, that sales is invitational, it is a conversation, and having the belief in your ability to sell and make money is what makes you unstoppable in business. So you're not freaking out about where you're going to find your next client from. And also feeling confident in the service that you deliver, confident in the value that you deliver. So we're going to also talk about that value piece today, because when it comes to your offers, we want to feel confident in what you're delivering is worth what you're charging. So then that certainty comes across, because people buy through your certainty, through your confidence. And then when it comes to, in my belief, in the way that I love to teach sales, integrity and authenticity is really key. People feel a lack of authenticity, right? If you don't have that coming through, and they also feel a lack of integrity. And people are done with being sold to when they're not getting what they asked for, or when they're not getting what they paid for, right? So step one in authenticity and integrity is leading with compassion and integrity and selling ethically. So this is where we're not judging other people for their budgets. We're not judging what we think people can and can't afford, or what is the way things should be. It's where we're leading with compassion and understanding that people are going to have questions through the sales process, and that we want to stay present with the client through that process so we can answer their questions. Step 2 is we're going to follow an invitational sales process to convert with integrity and understanding the psychology of sales. So that way we understand the decision-making process that someone goes through when they're making a decision to buy. When we know that, we can understand that objections are normal. We want to actually have objections come forward, because it's actually saying a client saying to us, but I have concerns with the investment. Can you help me understand? That's all an objection is just, can you help me understand? Whereas often we get scared and we run. We run from objections instead of staying present with the client. Step 3 is magnetizing your dream clients through your authenticity. And so when you work on your mindset and you work on your self-worth, which is what we're going to touch on today, we can actually step into magnetism and we can draw people in through our authenticity. And then strategies, which is what we're touching on tomorrow, is all about building a longer term strategy so you can achieve your sales goals. We implement sales systems, so we're not leaving our income up to chance, and we build our consistency. Consistency is key when it comes to creating consistent income. We've got to have consistent sales activities, which is what we're touching on all tomorrow. All right. So when it comes to hitting 6 figures, firstly, what we want to do before we start even putting a plan in place for tomorrow, so this is kind of setting us up for tomorrow and talking about our offers, we firstly want to make sure that it's possible, right? We want to do the math rather than setting ourselves up for failure and then feeling terrible at the end of the year when we haven't hit that 6 figures. We want to do the math now so we can be on track with our goals, okay? So what I would love for you to do first is I'd love for you to write down your current offers and services. Now, if you have a lot, I'd love for you just to write down your top three max, okay? Now, mostly people have 1 to 2 of your main top services, but ideally, yeah, we want to stick with your top 3 just to begin with for this activity. So if he's got more than that, just stick with your highest ones. And then next to them, write down the prices. What do you currently charge for those services or those packages, those offers? And again, if you're uncertain with what I'm asking, please feel free to ask. Please don't just sit there and be uncertain. Like if you've got the question, if I haven't described it in a way that makes sense to you, there's most likely someone else on here that also doesn't understand it. So please ask the question. If you get stuck with anything, please just pop it in the chat or turn your mic on and ask away. Awesome. Let me know once you've got your current offers written down and your current pricing. Maybe just pop done in the chat so I know to move on. I don't want to rush you. All good, Siobhan, no worries. Pop your camera on whenever you feel ready. And there's a recording up from yesterday. So I sent that through an email yesterday, but I'll also send through another recording link this afternoon. Awesome. Amazing. So I've got some dones, amazing. Okay. If anyone else needs more time, let me know. So ideally from here, once you've got these written down, we want to determine how many of those services would you need to sell per year to hit six figures. So you might need to get your calculator out for this and just divide six figures, 100 grand by your current services. So we're just going to work out the yearly total first. And often when we do this, one of the biggest realizations I'd love to see clients have is that often when we get stuck in worrying about all our marketing and all the leads and how many leads we need to have and all that type of thing, when we actually determine how many clients we actually need, we don't really need that many in order to hit our goals. So I'd love it if you've got it, if you could pop the number in the chat just so we can start to see, because majority of the time we actually don't need that many. It's not like you need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, right? Unless you have a really low ticket offer, you're probably not going to need hundreds. But if you have a high ticket offer, if you have a service that is actually reasonably priced at a high, because you're delivering a big service, then usually it's not that many. So I'd love it if you could pop it in the chat. There's the number of people that you would need, number of those things you would need to sell in order to hit six figures. Now, you might split it across the three. You might be like, oh, I'm just going to work with two. So I might need 10 of my package one, and then I need 15 of package two, whatever works well for you, depending on your business. But if you can determine just how many would you need to sell, pop it in the chat when you've got it. So it either goes two ways. One is like, oh, actually, that's not that many. Or two, holy shit. We get into a bit of overwhelm. Okay. So wherever you're sitting right now is totally fine. We're going to work through this together. So once you have that number, I want you to determine if you were to break that down to how many per month, how many clients would you need per month? So you break that figure down by 12. Now, there's always going to be a few nuances with this. Sometimes it will depend on how long your service is, etc. But I just want to get some basic figures here just so we can start to play with it, so then it helps build out our strategy for tomorrow. Okay. So out of curiosity, Vanessa, how many clients do you need to hit six figures for the year?
I'm still still working that out. I'm trying to do the maths here. Possibly like maybe 5 per week, roughly.
Yeah. So the way that you run your services at the moment, do you sell by the hour? Do you sell like packages?
Yeah, by the hour mainly is my
Okay.
main.
So you need 5 a week, which means 20 a month. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with your, and I hope you don't mind if I'm using as an example, is that okay?
Yeah.
So having the goal of like needing 20 clients a month, does that feel doable when you think about actually like servicing that many people over the month? Does that feel doable?
Well, it's definitely making me rethink my services and offers and pricing, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
20 is a bit much.
yeah. So sometimes that happens, right? We do the math and it's like, oh my God, I will be literally working 24/7. Like, is that even possible? So then we need to like reevaluate and be like, okay, so maybe I do need to look at my offers and maybe create something that's a little bit more less time focused or more profitable, right? Because really, if we're selling time for money, we can get caught in that crutch because you only have a certain amount of hours in the day, right? So it might be looking at like, how can we make our offers more valuable so that I'm actually delivering more value, but less time? Yeah, that'd be good for you to have a think about. So that's awesome. So thank you for letting me use you as an example. I appreciate that. So that brings me to the next piece is like currently with everyone listening as well, like with your current services, the amount of people that you would need to hit six figures, is it possible for you to service that many people? Or will that be you working 24/7? Or secondly, do we actually just need to look at the pricing? Do we need to actually adjust the pricing for them for it to be a more profitable service? Does it need to be that we need to actually create more of a high ticket offer that will serve the growth of your business so then you can pay yourself a good wage and work with really great clients and deliver a great service? Right? There's always going to be nuances. So if you have questions, obviously turn your mic on and ask away because it might be that time where we reflect and go, it's not really possible for me to hit six figures currently with what services I have or what offers I'm putting out there and what prices I'm charging. So it might be time to actually look at a price increase. Okay. And I hope that you're taking this with curiosity and awareness rather than like, oh my God, holy shit, what do I do? Because I'm going to support you through this next piece. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Nope. All good. Anyone else listening with your camera off, if you have questions, please feel free to turn your mic on and ask away. Otherwise, pop it in the chat. So I want to make sure that this is resonating with everyone. So when it comes to creating a service that's really impactful, that delivers on the service, there's always going to be like, where do we price ourselves in the market, right? But really what I want you to think about, rather than going, how do I be more competitive or how do I just create something that everyone else is doing because that seems to be selling what people are selling? I really want to think about how do I create a high ticket offer that will not only serve my customer in a great way, that will deliver a great transformation, that's more valuable, that's more profitable for me, that's less work for me necessarily, and that will actually attract really high value clients. So we want to work with high value clients. And there's a carousel that I put on my feed the other day on Instagram about the difference between high ticket clients and high value clients, I should say, and lower value clients. And it's not a judgment, it's just an awareness around where you're pricing yourself in the market. Because if we're pricing ourselves for clients who, want the cheapest, who are looking for the deal, then you will most likely be caught up in consumed in serving them because they're usually asking for a lot and not willing to do a lot of the work themselves. And so there's a lot of I'm trying to be really like, I don't want to be judgy in any way, shape, or form because there's obviously all different levels of clients with different budgets. But I want you to think about like with your business, who do you really want to work with? Do you want to work with clients that value what you do, that want to pay your invoices on time, that will actually do the work that you ask them to do? Then sometimes you need to actually price yourself at that point because when there is money in the game, when there's skin in the game, they're more likely to have clients that are committed as well, just as much as you are. And so your pricing definitely plays into that. So what is a high ticket offer? A high ticket offer is anything between like above $1,000 basically. So sometimes when people talk about high ticket offers, they can think about it like being a 10K offer or a 100K offer. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. The way that I perceive a high ticket offer is when your ideal client wouldn't normally spend that amount of money on something. So they're taking a pause to question whether they are going to make the investment or not. So another analogy around this is if you think about your ideal client, how much would they normally spend on groceries per week? And then I want you to figure out what they would normally spend per month, right? So if your service is a month long or if your service is a week long, I want you to do that comparison because if they normally spend like $300 on groceries, anything less than that, they're going to perceive, which is the psychology of sales, they will perceive that it's throwaway money because it's what they normally are comfortable spending money on their everyday, every week life, right? So anything more than that, so that's why I say usually above $1,000, people usually pause and go, oh, should I make this investment? When there's that type of money in the game, they're more likely to be more fully committed to showing up and doing the work and being a great client, right? So we want to consider where are we positioning ourselves with our offers? Are we trying to be bottom of the barrel? Are we trying to be really affordable? Are we trying to be cheap because we're trying to be competitive with what's happening in the market? Or am I focusing more on my actual offer and creating something that people really want to invest in? So this is where we step these things up. And the reason why we also want to do this is because one, we want to serve a customer at a high level. So to give you an example, I think I spoke about this yesterday about how like in the early stages of my business, I had to take a time to really consider like, what am I putting out there? Because that's what I'm getting back. So I was like thinking, oh, people don't really pay for a coaching package. So I'll just offer one coaching session. I'll just offer a 3 hour coaching session. And then at the end of those sessions, I'd be like, oh, there's so much more I want to help them with. And they're still stuck with this and they're still stuck with that because there's only so much that I can do in 90 minutes or 3 hours. So had to get to the point where I was like, I need to actually promote what I want to have come back in. I want to work with clients that are really invested in expanding their business and growing their business and working on themselves. And for me to do that, I need a minimum of 3 months. And so I had to actually go, well, hang on a minute. I'm the one that actually understands what they need to shift and create a new version of themselves in order to show up and be the version of themselves in their business to get the results that they really want to get. And for me to do that, I need to work through multiple different things. So I couldn't just put out a one offer, one session and expect that they're going to be super happy with that because they were still leaving that session going, oh, there's still more for me to work on. Right. And so at that time, I had to go like, for me to serve my customers at the highest level, what's the best way that I can do that? And that's where I worked out my first coaching package and then started promoting that. Secondly, to that, it also, when you're charging really like good high ticket pricing, it's profitable pricing, is what I mean. Profitable pricing for valuable offers that will then serve the growth of the business, but then also so you can pay yourself a wage, right? You deserve to be paid well for what you do. If you love what you do, you deserve to be paid well for it. So I want you to allow yourself to flex into this as we explore this a little bit more. So pay attention to anywhere where your mind is like, oh, that's not possible for me. I can't do that for my business. Oh, but no one else is doing it. Like if you're getting caught up in that, I want you just to bring yourself back to exactly what we're focusing on here, because I guarantee you, even if you haven't seen it yet, your ideal clients is all that matters here. When you serve your ideal clients and you're creating something that it is absolutely irresistible, they will pay for it. Okay. So when you think about your offer, I want you to think about what we spoke about yesterday, what you're actually selling and the transformation that you're creating. So what they come to you with, how you help them and the transformation that they create, I want you to think about positioning your offer as something that is so irresistible to them that they're like, oh, I have to have this. Now, for years in the coaching space, there have been the feedback that we often get in the coaching space from clients is when I join a group program, there's no access to the coach, or I'm actually getting a different coach to the person I signed up with, and there's no way to actually ask questions on a regular basis, right? There's no one-to-one coaching sessions. That was the feedback that kept happening when people started promoting group programs. So when I created my programs, I was like, I don't want to do that because my ideal clients are really wanting the one-to-one support. So that's why in everything that I do, there's always one-to-one elements, right? There's always access to me. I'm always going to be the one in the program answering the questions because that's what my clients value and that's what they see as irresistible. So when they're looking at other business programs, they're like, and they look at it and they're like, oh, this one, like actually, I looked at signing up for a mastermind with someone in the States recently. I think it was in December. And I looked at the sales page, and one of the biggest things that I noticed was zero one-on-one. No, it was a 30-minute session with this person over a 6-month mastermind, one 30-minute session. I'm like, what the hell are we even going to achieve in that? And then there was no other access to that person in between the group coaching sessions. And I was like, I'm not really sure if that's really the right fit for me, because what if I have questions? What if I get stuck, right? Like there is so much that happens in our businesses when we grow that we need that support. And so for me, when I was creating my offers, I was like, that has to be a part of it. So you really want to think about it from your customer's perspective. What would make them go, wow? What would make them go, wow, this is not offered anywhere else. This is so different. And sometimes you have to get out of your own head to try and figure this out, right? And sometimes you have to ask your ideal clients what they would really want from this. Or sometimes it's even stuff that you were already delivering, but you just haven't talked about it, right? Like I've had so many clients where they're like, oh yeah, I do that for my client. And I'm like, do you tell people that you do that? And they're like, oh, no. Nah. I'm like, cool, it needs to be part of your sales messaging. So we really want to think about like, how do we create an irresistible offer when we're presenting our services? How are they different from everything else out there? Because if your competitors are spruiking certain specific things and you're going and creating the same thing, how does a client know to work with you versus someone else? So we want to think about how we're being different, how we're highlighting different elements, right? Majority of the time when it comes to business programs, there's not a lot of sales aspects in programs. There's usually a lot of marketing. And secondly, there's not a lot of mindset work, the deep way that I do mindset work. So as an NLP practitioner, as an M-branding practitioner, I work on the subconscious mind to rewire any neural pathways that aren't serving you and doing that deep work. Whereas with other programs, it's just like chit chat, chatting around the mindset stuff, right? So this is where I'm different. And so I've got to actually communicate that. Otherwise, people don't know, right? The next key piece I want to highlight here is when we try to stay competitive. So often we can get caught up in price because it's often what people are telling us, like, oh, but this person charges that, but why, right? If you're not communicating the point of difference as to why you charge differently, then ideal clients don't know, right? So for instance, I had worked with a conveyancer recently and she was talking to me about how like it's so competitive that people literally do the ring around to be like, what do you charge? What do you charge? What do you charge? And I was like, great. And what do you respond to that? And the way that she would respond, she would be like, oh, I try to just tell them like, oh, I've got a team and I've got like these things and this and this and this. And I'm like, great, but why is that important for a customer to know? And then once we actually uncovered why it was important, I was like, holy shit, like, why are you not telling this? Why aren't you not screaming this from the rooftops? This needs to be all over your social media. This is your point of difference, right? And this, it could be a specialization. It could be how you overcome an area of fear around something that you help them with that maybe you haven't identified and communicated. So trying to figure out like what is your point of difference and how you are so different. And when you focus on the value rather than price, people will always go towards the value if that's what they value as well, right? So that then brings me to the next piece, which is you have to believe in that value. You have to believe in it before anybody else will. So you have to back yourself in the way that you then communicate that. Because when you communicate that and then the clients feel your uncertainty with that, and you're like, well, this is actually how I'm different. Well, yes, they may be more expensive, but the reason why we're not that expensive is because of this. Or I am more expensive. And the reason for that is this, and this, right? So if you're not communicating that, you can't expect your ideal clients to understand the difference. So really understanding the true value of your offer. Okay. How is this resonating? You making sense for you? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I want to talk to you. And actually, before we talk about the value piece, I'm sure these are some of the mindset fears that come up, right? But what if people won't pay it if I raise my prices? But what if can I charge that? Is that okay for me to charge that? Is it even worth that? And so when it comes to value, value is actually not about what you think about it. It's about your ideal client. It's about the value of the buyer, what they perceive it to be, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're great at it, you probably wouldn't pay for it, right? Like, why would you go and pay someone to do something that you're great at and you do anyway, right? And that's why sometimes we change, it's shifts in the way that we perceive it. And this is where we get so caught up. It's either connected too much to our self-worth or we're not perceiving the value from the customer's point of view. So, for instance, I suck at copywriting. Copywriting is not my forte. I've never learnt the skill. It's something that I found I could talk until the cows come home, but when it comes to copy, it's something that I really struggle with, right? Writing emails is like the bane of my existence. And so for me to pay for someone to do that, I find that really valuable because it saves me so much time. It saves me so much heartache and even the brain power, the effort that it takes me to think about, oh my God, I've got to write those emails. Oh yeah. And I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. And then when I sit down to write it, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to write about? Like the pain of that, the value of then getting someone else to paying someone else to do that, I find super valuable. But the copywriter would be like, oh, but that's easy for me. 2 emails. Why would you pay someone else to write 2 emails? And I'm like, because it saves me 3 hours of stressing about it, right? So you really want to think about like, how is the value perceived and how are you portraying it? Is you portraying it from your eyes or you are portraying it from your client's eyes? Because that's the difference that shifts everything. So here's how we communicate value. Value, the universal language of value, because when we think about the world, right, we want to look at the universally, value is perceived in three main ways: time, money, and energy, right? Across everything, time, money, and energy. So if we start here, we want to consider like, how is your service and we want to make sure that we're communicating value based on your customer's perception of your service. So how does your service save time or speed up time? Maybe make the solution faster, right? Or get to the result faster. How does it save them time? How does it make them money or save them money? How does it reduce effort? Or another way to put that would be give them energy. So it's always both. So it's either how does it reduce effort for copywriting? it would like reduces my effort of actually doing it, but also gives me energy because I don't have to worry about it. And I have to think about doing that for the 3 hours and leading up to it, right? So we want to think about these three main ones for our service. You won't necessarily have all three, but if you can try to pinpoint one or two that is really important to your customer and communicate that more often, you'll find that your customer will relate to it and be like, oh, yes, now that's why I need it, right? The other two ways to communicate your value is how you specialize. So if you are specialized in your field, you want to identify how you're specializing and how you are the authority in that space and how you're communicating that. Because I need to know why I should pick you over someone else, right? So you might, like, if I was going to a surgeon, right, and I had a specific thing, like maybe I had a specific part of my body that really needed worked on, I would rather choose a surgeon that's done that specific surgery many, many times rather than just a generalist, right? So you want to think about that, like how you're communicating the point of difference there if you're specialized in your area. So for instance, I got a past client of mine who is a naturopath and she specializes in women health, specifically fertility. But up until the point of working with me, she'd never communicated with her audience that she actually specializes in fertility. She felt uncomfortable sharing it. She felt like she was like, oh, I'm not really the expert in it. I'm like, no, but do you help? She's like, every day I help women with fertility. And I was like, why are you telling people that? And so we needed to actually work on how she was going to communicate that felt really authentic and genuine and in integrity for her as well. Once we did that, her following skyrocketed. We created actually a specific podcast that was a series specifically for fertility that went through the roof and then increased her leads massively. And she was like, why didn't I do this before? Right. So that's another way to show your value. Or it could be the long-term impact. So you want to think about your service specifically. What's the long-term impact that it creates and how you communicate that? So let's work on this. So with your specific service, your offer, how does it save a client money or how does it make them money? So I'm going to write just the answer to this. We'll take some time to look at this. And it might not, but you want to explore it, right? So even with yours, Alex, like you might not think it will save them money or make them money, but it might, like we talked about yesterday, like, is it actually attracting a higher level client because their workspaces are incredibly like immaculate and they look really high end maybe, right? So it actually helps them make money because they're attracting the high level clients they really want to work with, right? Is it more functional? And does that actually save them money? Because maybe if it's more functional, then their team are more productive. But if we don't connect the dots, the customer's not going to do that for you. You've got to connect the dots for them so then they see the value in it, right? Then time is the next one. So how does your service save them time or how does it speed up time, as in like speed up the result, get them to it quicker? So like for clients of mine that work with me, they work with a coach because they want to actually understand how to get to their next goal faster. And so we work out how to do that and they give them accountability to take the action to get there faster. Plus, also working with someone who's been there before, has created the similar results that they want to achieve, helps them overcome any mistakes that they would make along the way because they've got access to someone to ask the questions and get the advice that's going to get them there faster, right? So you want to think about for your specific service. And again, you won't have all three here. So if you're like, oh, but that doesn't make sense for my service, it's okay. You are not going to have all three. And the last one there, how does your service reduce effort or give the client energy? Now, I will just add one little extra one because I know that I have a relationship coach here on the call with Giselle. Yours might be like, it's actually more love. Like that's a whole other one, right? That's still valuable to people, to the human race. And so yours might like actually how finding love and feeling love, like that's a little bit different, right? Whereas you will definitely help them save time for sure, because if they're going to spend like the next 6 months, like it's actually the cost of inaction, right? If they do nothing and then they're in the exact same place in 6 months' time, how is that going to make them feel? Right? That is going to be a pain point enough for people to be like, okay, I need to get support here, right? I'm sick of being in these toxic relationships. I'm sick of not finding the one that I really want to, experience love with. And so that's going to help you speed up time to get there. So if you're highlighting that, and also reducing the effort there is like, being in those toxic relationships would be exhausting and drain your energy. So by actually working through your own patterns and uncovering where you're getting caught in that cycle of like drama cycle, then it helps you pull yourself out and have more energy for life, right? So it's about how you articulate these main things to help communicate your value, all right? Does anyone have any questions around this? All good. Anyone else? Awesome. So when it comes to then owning your value, we really want to, obviously, like I said before, we've got to believe in the value that we deliver before anyone else will. So sometimes we need to do that, backtrack with past clients to actually see the impact that we've had and see the results that we've created in order for you to believe that it's really valuable. And so then when you then unpack the value pieces, you're like, oh my God, yeah, my service does save someone time. It does speed up the process. It does save them money, or it does make them money. And that's really valuable. And then if you want to put a dollar figure on that too, so then you can identify like, if me charging more, it's okay because this is the ROI they're going to get, right? Now, sometimes, and this I see a lot with a lot of women that I work with, and I've had this experience myself, when we're the one delivering the service, sometimes we attach it to our self-worth. So it feels uncomfortable promoting our offers or selling necessarily because our self-worth is tied to it, right? So it feels uncomfortable going, oh, should I charge more? Am I worth more than that? When really what I would love for you to do is learn to disconnect yourself from your service. You have a business, and that business delivers a service, and that service is valuable on its own. You may be the operator that delivers that service, but I want you just to separate that from a minute for a minute, because you're an incredible human being. You're loving, you're kind, you're generous, you're beautiful, like all the things that make you who you are. You are worthy because you were born here on this planet. You exist right now, which means you are worthy. And you have a business, and that business has a service that is valuable to the customer. Okay. When we see it like that, we can be like, this service is valuable to our customer, and it is worth charging that in order for that service to continue to be able to be delivered. All right. So when we learn to communicate the value based on the customer's needs and what the customer perceives as value, we can then disconnect our own self-worth from it. Because it's really hard to feel like, oh, I'm giving so much of myself. And this is where we also notice the value and it exchanges off. Because if you get to the point where you're undercharging and you're starting to feel resentful towards the clients that you're working with, you're starting to feel exhausted, underappreciated, feel like you're giving so much of yourself, it's usually because the value exchange is off, which means you're not being paid enough. Whereas if you were to double your prices, you would feel very different in the way that you deliver your services, right? So we want to acknowledge like your self-worth is separate to the value of the offer that you're selling. Does this resonate with you? Yeah. So when we see that as separate, you're able to then sell that service as a separate offer. You're not selling yourself, right? Because then when we're trying to come from a place of selling ourselves, it's like, please let me prove to you that I'm worthy to charge this. And you're constantly trying to prove your worth, and you end up over servicing and over delivering, which leaves you burnt out, right? We've got to look at the service as a separate offer, and that is valuable on its own. So we disconnect our self-worth from our offer, and we see that value in as its own because it has its own value. So that brings me to my next truth bomb, which is most people aren't converting as often as they'd like because they have some money blocks or a negative mindset towards sales. And if you are one of those people, great, you are human. There is no person that I've ever come across that did not have some form of a money block or that did not have some type of story around sales. Honestly, like we all have stories because we're all conditioned by it from society, from the books that we read, the movies that we watch, the songs that we listen to, the news that we watch, like everything that we consume has a mindset, right? And so we're either adopting a mindset that has a negative connotation towards money or sales, or we're adopting an abundant mindset that will serve us to believe that there's more than enough available to us. So there is a really close connection between sales and money. This is why I always do the money mindset work, because it starts to shift things from a subconscious level, which makes it feel more comfortable for us to receive more. So the first question I have for you here is, why are you not earning, or why do you believe that you're not earning the money you'd like to be earning? Just to take a second just to ponder on that.
Is that okay if I jump on?
Go for it, lovely.
Hi, everyone. Um, for me, yesterday, I got the awareness of selling is stealing money from people. Like, yeah, if I sell this program or coaching, I'm going to steal their money and their money will be mine. Something like that, which is random.
Yeah.
Uh, but and for that reason, it has stopped me to sell my
Yeah.
services. And I give it away, like you said, you have a hobby. Yes, I do have a hobby. It's called self-relationship, which is a coaching, not a business. I have a woman from New Zealand and she messaged me, it's like, Giselle, this guy, this happened. And I answer her, no worries, with no money in my bank account. So yeah, I have that limitation of I think if I sell something, is stealing people's money. And as well, when you were talking today about the pricing, for me, it's like what? Like how much would I can I price? Can I just charge $80 a month? Because as well, I was thinking in my version, like the version of me who was in that kind of relationship. I didn't have much money in that time.
Yeah. And
I
this is
need.
right. We relate or we think that our customer is us 5 years ago or when we were back in that situation. But it's not always the case. There's multiple different customers with different bank accounts. And so I love that you shared this, Giselle. And I'm sure like if anyone has resonated with what Giselle just said about like giving services away for free, like please raise your hand or like pop it in the chat because I'm sure you're not the only one. We've all experienced that at some point where we felt like we had to, or we did give it away for free. And it's so interesting. Like when you shared that thought or that belief system of like, oh my God, I'm stealing the money, you actually had a different voice. So I'd be interested to know like whose voice is that? Is it someone in your family? Is it something that you heard in a movie once? Like sometimes we just take on like, oh my God, you're stealing someone's money, right? Like we have this mindset. And so we want to address that and be like, well, is that actually true? Do you perceive your service to be valuable because you are exchanging that value for other forms of value? Yes, and maybe in a movie. It's so interesting that how much it impacts us, right? And so when you see, you've got to start seeing your service as valuable. In order for you to charge for it and charge correctly for it, you've got to see the value in it because you are equally exchanging value. They're choosing to exchange their money, which is their valuable piece that some guy decided years and years and years ago that coins and pieces of money, like cash and numbers on a screen, would be valuable. And that's our exchange, right? It used to be the barter system. Now it's money. So it's okay because you've got to see your service as valuable that they really want to receive and that it's an exchange. It's not that you're not giving them anything. They're getting something in return, and that is valuable. So allowing yourself to really see that value and actually doing the work of unpacking the value pieces that we just covered would be so worthwhile because you've got to really see it in order for you to start feeling comfortable to charge for it. So yeah. So anyone else that comes up with like why you believe you're not earning the money you'd like to be earning? Something else that you feel comfortable sharing? I know it's a big question, so even just pondering on it, because a lot of the time when we ask this question, it comes up with the real blocks that are preventing us from moving forward. Like it's not safe for me to earn that amount of money. Well, no one else in my family has earned that amount of money. Or well, I don't have the money to put into to use as a resource to make more money. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the clients. Like, well, or it often comes up to other services or mindset blocks. Other resources or mindset blocks. And so uncovering this is one of the biggest blocks you can look and do I deserve it? Right? Giselle's like, oh, like that's come up for me. So paying attention to what your mind goes to. It's like, well, do I deserve to earn more money? Yeah, you do. You exist. You exist and you have a valuable service. That's all that matters, right? So allowing yourself to like look at that block to be like, okay, what could be preventing me from moving forward? So when it comes to hitting six figures, there are some mindset blocks when it comes to money that show up for a lot of women that I work with. And so there's so many, and I've only got a couple here on the screen. So we're going to go through a few more, but if yours isn't here, it's okay. It does not mean it's not a real thing. It is a real thing if it's causing you to prevent yourself from hitting six figures. So sometimes I see women get stuck at the 35K threshold, 75K threshold, where we have to start paying GST here in Australia. Okay. So if you're in America, I've now got a couple of Americans here, your threshold might be different when you different tax brackets, right? So here in Australia, we have a 75K tax bracket that if you start earning above that, you have to start paying GST, which is adding 10% on top of what you already charge. Sometimes we prevent ourselves from going above that 75 because we're fearful of giving more money away. And so I've had this many times before where we needed to work through the fear around that and also recognize that you're capping yourself at 75K. It's okay that you get to pay GST and that money goes into serving the community, right? And so, or it might be that we have a fear of being seen as expensive, or I've even had a client in the past where she was so concerned with being sorry, Giselle just popped in the chat, paying taxes. You're already paying taxes. Like you're already paying it. But when you're running your business and you're earning more money, you have the freedom to decide how much money you want to earn. You're either paying taxes with a wage because you're already paying it, right? So it's like allowing yourself to know, like, where am I capping myself? I had a past client that she had the perception that she's like, well, I have to be affordable and I have to be affordable. I'm like, okay, but where is that positioning you? Are you trying to be affordable to try and be the cheapest, or do you want it to be valuable? Let's just refocus rather than being trying to be affordable. Let's actually be more valuable. Sometimes it's the 100K threshold. I actually had some like blocks when it came to hitting 10K months. And even actually with 100K, like back when I was working towards it in early stages of my business, back then in the coaching space, people who were hitting six figures, I felt were doing things really untoward and unethical. The way that they were selling, the way that they were like certain things you would hear in the industry. I had this perception that if I was to hit six figures, I would either be judged or I would have to be someone I didn't want to be. And so I had this block around this threshold. And so I actually had to work through that mindset block in order to hit the six figures. So it might be a fear of the milestone and what that would mean about you. Or it could be that you actually have not a great relationship with money at the moment. And so then if you don't really have a great relationship with money at the moment, sometimes then thinking about earning more, there's that fear around like, oh, but I'll have to be responsible for it, or I won't know how to manage it, or am I going to even be able to handle that, right? So it comes up with all these fears when we hit these types of thresholds. And so working through understanding like, who would I even have to become if I was wealthier? Because as a person, you have your identity of who you currently are. And that identity has a money mindset that actually feels safe where you currently are. So whatever income you're currently earning, there has a level of familiarity that your brain deems as being safe. So sometimes when we start earning more money and attracting more money and bringing more money into our lives, it feels uncomfortable because your identity is like, oh, this is not us. This is different. Like, who are we to think we could have more money? Who are we to think we could deserve this? Or, oh my gosh, what if I get judged? What if my parents used to judge people with money and now I'm being perceived as being wealthy? Holy shit, what are people going to say about me? Like, it creates this shift of identity. And unless we update our identity, we will always keep coming back to our thresholds that feel safe and familiar and comfortable, right? This is why we work on our money mindset. So for you to be able to earn more money and actually push through those thresholds, we've got to unpack what are those blocks, what are those things that are preventing you, those barriers that are preventing you from actually having more. Because having more, and again, pay attention, what does your brain say? Having more, does that mean bad? Does that mean you would feel guilty? Does that mean that you would be, just having more wealth make you a bad person? Like there's always all these different types of money blocks that prevent us from scaling. So it all comes back to how money was really talked about or how you experienced it as a kid and the conditioning that we have around money, and also the stories that we've taken on board around money throughout our lifetime. So just to, tap onto this a little bit, how was money talked about when you were growing up? In your household, can you remember? Was there conversations around money? Did it create fights? Was it something that always felt like there was not enough? Did it feel like nothing you could, there was never anything, things you could afford? Like maybe you'd ask mum for money and she'd be like, the first response would be like, we can't afford that, right? Things like that start to embed into our subconscious mind. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe money wasn't talked about. Maybe it was this thing that created an energy in the house, but it was only talked about behind closed doors, right? Like sometimes it's like, then is it not okay to talk about money? Like, what did that make it mean? Because your brain will always come up with meaning. It will always find meaning for certain things. So it might then your brain might be going like, oh, well, that means it's not okay to talk about money. It's not okay to have money. Or maybe it's not, as a woman, maybe it's not okay for me to have money because it's what the man needs to take care of, right? It's up to the men to provide. Like whatever the conditioning is, we don't want to judge it. Whatever the experience was as a kid, we don't want to judge it. We just want to recognize like now as an adult, we can address that if it's holding us back. Now, sometimes you've got positive money experiences from childhood. That's great. We want to keep those and we just want to weed out the ones that aren't serving us now, okay? So our subconscious associations with money impact how we experience money in our business, how we receive it, how we ask for it, how we manage it. And that impacts obviously our ability to sell, right? And so we want to be conscious of like, what is the story that we're telling ourselves around money and how is that playing into the way that we interact with it on a daily basis? Because our behaviors that create our results, right? So our external world, or what results we're currently experiencing around money, is a representation of what's going on between our ears. So if we don't feel comfortable, if we have a story around, like I remember having a story around, I was told in school that I wasn't great at math. One of my teachers, who was really mean and basically said like, oh, maybe she should not do that next level of math because she's not great at it. She said that one they said to my mum while I was standing there. And so then that became a story into my adult years where I was like, well, maybe I'm not good with numbers. Maybe I'm not good with numbers, and numbers, very closely related to money. And so I had this real block around being able to manage money, but really I had an education gap. There was no one taught me about money when I was in high school, right? They only teach you like such a small basic economics class, but not how to really deal with it in the real world. So then running my business, it brought up all of this stuff to the surface of like, oh, you're not good with numbers, and oh, you're not good with money, and all this type of stuff. And so if we don't address it, then often it can drive our experience of our business. And so this is why I love addressing it with clients, because it helps to shift so much scarcity, so much fear, so much doubt, and allows us to get back into control with our money so we can feel good about not only receiving it, but also managing it and holding it so it serves the growth of our lives. So scarcity can show up in so many different ways. And so when I think about scarcity, another way to put that would be lack. So when our mindset goes to focusing on the lack instead of our abundance. So this can also impact our ability to sell. So we get caught up in scarcity and the fear that there's not enough clients, there's not enough money, there's not enough ability for me to earn more. And so then we get into desperation selling, which is a huge repellent. People do not want to buy from people who are in scarcity. So we want to be conscious of this, because if we're having belief systems around or stories around money, like, oh, I'm taking money and leaving them with less, right? Like Giselle, I'm stealing from clients, or I can't afford it, so how could they? Or I wouldn't pay for this, why should they? Or I have to take this client because I don't know if there'll be any more, right? And so we accept less than we deserve. Or I better discount, right? Otherwise they'll say no, or maybe I'll just give something extra for free. Have you ever done that when you're on a call with someone, you're like, I'll just add this in. And it's one of those things that we're actually then charging less because we're adding more into the service. Or we just say yes to doing whatever the client wants, even though it's probably out of our scope, because we're fearful of upsetting the client, or we don't want to alienate those who can't afford us. And so then we perceive we should charge less. But you know what? Majority of men don't have that issue. And I just highlight that for 1 second. Like a lot of men, I'm not saying all, but a lot of men are like, yeah, I'll charge more, whatever, right? But women are so conscious of other people's feelings, or how not wanting to upset anyone, or we just have a lot of conditioning around money because, it wasn't until 1984 that women were allowed to have a bank account in their own name. So we have a lot of generational conditioning around money too. So we've got to be conscious of that and start to actually build our money story and our money identity and where we want to go, not where we are. So when we're stuck in scarcity, we often react out of fear. We fear the rejection. We fear we're not good enough, or fear, there's not enough clients, fear of not knowing where we're going to find our next client, fear of taking money from people and leaving them with less, or fear that you're maybe just too much in our own heads and it feels really uncomfortable in the sales process when you're so fearful of, can I afford it? Are they going to say no? Are they going to say yes? Instead of staying present with the customer. And so this is also why I work on money mindset with my clients, because when you're out of scarcity, you can be fully present with the client, serving them in their decision to make for their decision for their future, and not worrying about where I'm going to find my next client from or whether they're going to say yes or no. So how does your relationship with money affect your business? So I want just to identify if there's any of these self-sabotaging behaviors that are showing up for you. Are you not actually asking for the sale? Are you sending a proposal instead of discussing a price on a call? Are you undercharging, discounting, or doing free services? Are you constantly changing your mind? Are you over-servicing or over-delivering to people please? Are you really vague? So actually not even asking for what you want. So I even like setting goals, like money goals. Often I see this with a lot of women that I work with, where they're like, oh, I'd like more money, but how much? I'm like, oh, just enough. It's all I need. I don't really need more than what I need. Like, but what even is that? It's okay for you to ask for more. Maybe not following up on potential clients or on opportunities, not setting financial goals, not asking for referrals, not increasing your prices, trying to stay affordable, or fearful of people rejecting that or saying no. Maybe not avoiding your numbers altogether is another one that I've seen a lot of. And it was one that I had in the past. Again, I had that story around not being good with numbers. So I avoided doing my numbers in my business. But your numbers can tell you so much for your business growth. Avoiding selling yourself for fear of being salesy or rejected, or maybe you're over consuming, not feeling like you know enough, not feeling like you can charge that. So you've got to keep learning, keep investing, keep learning. And then you're not actually focusing on the things that will move the needle in your business, but you're just consuming. Yeah. So I want you to identify if there's any of these that are showing up for you, because this is definitely the next stage of work that you need to do in order for you to feel confident in hitting six figures. Giselle said that is me. Do you mean all of them? Or aside from all of the above?
I mean, the buying courses and buy courses because I think I don't know enough when I know enough.
Yes. So this is where you've got to shift away from your current like service learning and actually implement what you learn. You've got to take that and implement it, because the only way that you're going to take that to the next level is that you take a client through it, that you sell your service, you take a client through it to see the results that you can create, and you'll realize you know enough for now. Like, I'm not saying you just don't ever learn again, like 100%. I'm always upgrading my knowledge and always working on myself. But there's got to be times where you do the implementation to see the results, because otherwise you'll never see the value of it. You'll never believe it's enough unless you actually put it into practice. Yeah, love that. So if you pinpoint one of these behaviors, if you were just to pinpoint one for me, I just want you to identify this because it's a beautiful way to work through this. You're so welcome, Giselle. So with this behavior that you've identified, there's one that you often have in your business, or that your relationship with money is affected. Why do you believe that you do that behavior? Why do you believe that you do that behavior? And your brain might automatically go, I don't know, we just do it. And that's fine, but work through it. Like, stay with it. Ask yourself again, why do you believe that you undercharge? Why do you believe that you have to keep giving in order for people to pay more? Why do you believe that you avoid your numbers? Whatever it might be. And if you're brave enough to share, I'd love to hear, or pop it in the chat.
I'm just gonna speak it up because it feels easier. I think for me, the one I can relate to is avoid to sell myself.
Mhm.
I used to approach clients, even if there was a rejection, the feedback was great, so nothing productive to me to work with, in terms of how can I do things better, or and then eventually now I'm fucking sick of it, to be honest. So it drags me down every time, and every time I spend a week super depressed, super unmotivated, and I'm at that point where I'm like, nah, fuck it, I don't want to go through, because if it's another failure, it's just going to drag me down for 2 weeks, and I don't want to have to pull myself back up again.
Yeah.
Well, like,
So,
it's just harder every time, right?
yeah, I
And
get
I'm not learning anything from it either. So I feel like a psycho doing the same mistake all over
makes
and over
sense,
again. Yeah.
right? So we've either got to change what we're doing to get a different result.
Mm,
We've got to address the mindset, because that's what's actually causing the emotional drop. It's the meaning
mm.
you're placing on it. So the word that you used there was failure.
Yeah.
It's another failure.
Yeah.
What if it was actually just the next stepping stone in order for you to get to your result?
Yeah. Hasn't felt like that.
Right? But that's what I mean. But if you change that thought, then you feel different about it. Right? Where, like,
Yeah.
what if the next conversation I have is a yes? What if the next conversation I do learn something? What if I had this conversation and it leads to something else? And that's definitely the mindset work, right? Like, it's managing your mind, because your brain, like everyone else's brain, our brains are like toddlers. Like, if we don't manage them, they will create chaos.
Yeah.
Like, literally create chaos. And so we're like, okay, if I'm letting it go to that extent, I've got to try to find it earlier, try to feel that thought before you even pick up the phone. That thought will be happening. You're like, oh, this is going to fail.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Right? Which then drains your energy. Whereas you're like, okay, so how can I approach this differently? And obviously you want to try other things as well, but like, how can I approach this differently? What mindset can I have before I go and do this? Because if that's then obviously creating the results, and then you're feeling terrible, and then it's obviously 2 weeks later before you feel like you can pick yourself back up again. So we want to address the mindset way before it happens. So then you're able to address the situation so you feel better about it, and you'll have create a different outcome. And so then you want to think about, like, is there anything else underlying that? Like, is there anything else calling you to, sometimes we have a secondary gain to it too. So sometimes we have like this belief of like, oh, this is never going to work, or it's always going to be a failure. And then that causes us to feel even worse, or it's actually protecting us, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, if it doesn't work out, then I really don't have to push myself outside my comfort zone and do something else, right? I'll just keep doing the same thing because I know the outcome. Even though it's a shit outcome, our brain is still like, well, it's familiar, which means it's safe, because I know it's going to be an outcome, right? So we want to just address it that one step further, to be like, why do I do that? Why do I do that behavior? And so figuring out, like, okay, is it the behavior that needs to change, or is it the mindset that needs to change?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
So, and this kind of brings me to the next piece is like, okay, but that's a little story that I'm telling myself, right? This is a bit of a failure, but who would I be without that story? So we just sit with that for a second. And same thing with everyone else as you identified, like why you do that behavior. It's a story that you're telling yourself. It's a belief system or a mindset. Who would you be without that story? And if anyone wants to share, feel free. So I always love hearing this piece because it's like, oh, I would actually promote myself. I would do different things. I would show up and be confident. I would sell myself more regularly. I would like manage my money more effectively. Like who would you be without that story? Awesome. So we really want to start to adopt a really positive mindset around money because at the end of the day, it's all made up. Like our stories that we tell ourselves are all made up. Yes, they might be past experiences, but it's still the meaning that you're placing on it. So we need to shift that to a more abundant mindset. So we need to believe that there is more than enough clients to go around. And hopefully that activity at the beginning of the session where you're like, oh, I need 20 clients or however many clients you figured out you needed. You're like, oh, is that all I need? Yeah, there's plenty of clients in Australia, in America, in whatever country you're in that will have the problem that you're experiencing that you can solve them. Sorry, that you can help them solve. So we will need to believe there's more than enough clients that are going around. We have to value the offer that we deliver and that value is worth exchanging money for. Right? That if a client says no, it's okay. There will be more clients. And what can I learn from this? That sales is an invitation. It's a conversation to determine a longer relationship. And I deserve to be paid well for what I do. I deserve to be paid well for what I do. And it's safe for me to receive more. Right? Allowing yourself to this is just a snippet of like positive money mindset. So if we're able to start to adopt new belief systems, it'll change the way that we feel, change the way that we behave in our business and in the way that we show up and how that we manage money in our lives, which then will create a different outcome. So if you believe that there was always more money, how would you treat money differently? If you believed you had access to an unlimited amount of money, what would you do next? And how would you approach selling your offers? If you believe there was more money out there in the world, that people had an unlimited amount of money, how would you sell yourself? How would you sell your offers? Would you feel confident? Would you put yourself out there more? Would you share it more often? It's so interesting when we start to just take away that story around money and it'll change the way that we show up. So what would you need to believe for you to be able to take your business to the next level? Yes, 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 Giselle, love it. What would you need to believe in order for you to take your business to the next level? Have a think about it because this is something that you could repeat to yourself daily to help rewire that part of your brain. Because what you believe manifests, or what you believe you create. Another way to put that, same thing, but different word. You create it, whatever you believe you create. So you shift your mindset and you allow more money to flow to you. Awesome. So it all starts with mastering your mindset. So we've got to figure out what's holding you back. And we've uncovered quite a lot today. So sitting with that today and uncovering it. And if you have any questions, I've got time to sit and chat with you about it today. So let me know because I'm going to open Q&A with everything we've covered so far. And then I'm going to touch on what we're going to cover off tomorrow for day 3. And I would love for you to, make sure that you take a moment to share your takeaways to be in the draw to win those prizes. I love that, Giselle. It's possible for me too. And I have enough knowledge to help women. 100% you do. 100%. You're already helping them for free. So you absolutely can help. So believing in that, the more you believe in that, the easier it will become. Amazing. So remembering to share your takeaways, tag me in that to be in the draw for your prizes. For day 3, we're going to be covering, I've got a special guest coming, beautiful Lita from Hey Lita Branding. She's a branding and marketing mentor, and she's going to be coming and speaking to us as well tomorrow. So beautiful guest speaker. And we're going to be diving into strategy tomorrow. So we're going to take everything we've learned so far and we're going to create a strategic, scalable action plan for you to hit 6 figures. All right. So you know exactly what to focus on daily to grow consistently. We're going to talk about the daily, weekly, and monthly habits that top entrepreneurs swear by in order to scale sustainably and to stay in control of your business growth so you can hit that 6 figures, and the daily habits that go along with building trust, growing your audience, and keeping your business top of mind. And I'll be sharing the prize winners as well tomorrow. And I'll be sharing with you some next steps. So if you would like to continue to learn from me, I'll share that with you as well. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed today. I hope that it's uncovered a couple of interesting insights into the way that you think about your offers, but also the way that money mindset has been playing in, impacting you and your business at the moment. So I'm going to open up the floor to Q&A. Does anyone have any questions with anything we've covered so far? Oh, so the prize winners, so the are the three prizes. So basically, to be in the draw to win the three prizes, you need to jump on social media and share any of your takeaways from yesterday or today. Tag me in it so then I can see it, and then you go into the draw to win one of the three prizes. First prize is the complimentary coaching session with me, valued at $650. Prize two is access to my mini course, which is a sales and money mindset upgrade. Or prize three is a copy of two of my favorite business books, one of them being Becoming Magnetic from Erica Kramer. All right. Any questions? Don't be scared. Feel free to ask. Either turn your mic on or pop it in the chat.
Personally, I don't have questions like always I do in other webinars, but in yours it's like you have touched all of my points. Also the hidden one, which is you are worthy as you are good enough as you are knowledgeable enough. Like for me, that has been my stuckness, and I stay in the stuck of like am I good enough for this, or I deserve money, like doubting myself and all of those things.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that this resonated with you so much today, lovely. And like the biggest takeaway you could take from this is it's just a story. And the more you repeat that story, the more it will stay true. Right. So if you can stop repeating it and replace it with more positive beliefs about, I know enough, it is possible for me, I can earn good money, the more you'll start to believe it. And then your behavior will lead in, be in alignment with that belief, right? So you'll confidently sell yourself, you'll put yourself out there, you'll challenge those belief systems. But if you don't, if you keep just replaying that story, it just keeps being your story, right? And nobody else knows that story but you. So you've got to decide that you're not going to repeat that story anymore and decide to replace it with something more effective. But thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Amazing. Anyone else have any questions or takeaways? No? Well, my DMs are always open. So if you have any questions,
I do.
Oh,
I do.
yeah.
Can you please repeat if you can about the you mentioned something like but your client can have different bank accounts. Can you tell me more about it, because I want to think about that.
Say again. So,
Because I said well, in my case I
yes.
could charge $80 a month, but
Right. So
I deserve
basically,
money and I deserve better.
yeah, what I was meaning is that you're perceiving that other people have the same bank accounts that you had back then, right? So you're saying, well, back then when I was in this position, when I would have needed my service, I didn't have the money. So you're perceiving that other people also have the same situation, but that's not entirely true. There is truth that there's absolutely people out there in toxic relationships or in a position where they're like, I don't want to be in more toxic relationships, that I want to work on my relationship, that have a disposable income, that have jobs that can afford to work with you. But your perception is that that's not the case. So you've got to start to open up your mind to be like, oh, could it be possible that there's other people out there that really need my services and can afford it? And I guarantee you, if you look for it, you will find the proof that that exists. Does that help?
It does, but at the same time, I feel like I feel bad for that version of me. That the only money that she could pay in that time was $80 a month for help, like in a one-on-one or group coaching. Maybe I
And
can pay
how many years ago was that?
7.
Yeah. So a lot has changed in 7 years with regards to what people get paid. And this is the thing, like if you're carrying that story, you want to ask yourself, is that useful for me to believe that? Because if it's not useful, we need to change it to also do the research, because if you're just basing your pricing on your perception of what you could afford back then you'll most likely end up undercharging instead of doing the proper research to find the right clients that would actually value investing in this and that do have the money.
You are so right.
Can I just say something on that? Sorry. I was told once when I was, starting different field, whatever. I don't think I would actually have a lot of trust in someone that undercharges themselves, because to me it screams insecurity, inexperience. Like I'd rather, if you tell me your price is 200 per hour, I have more belief in that.
Yeah.
getting any result, then okay, I'm going to be $50 an hour. Does that make sense?
100%, 100%. So we're really considering your ideal client, who you want to work with, how they would perceive that in the market. Like I was actually saying this to someone the other day, like I've just recently moved and I need to find a new hairdresser, right? So I need to have a haircut and I need to find a new hairdresser. And I really value finding someone that's really good. Like I want to see someone that's great at what they do, that I know I'm going to trust that they're going to give me a bloody good haircut. And there's plenty of hairdressers out there that would charge under $50 for a haircut. There's plenty of hairdressers that would charge $80 for a haircut. And the ones that I was looking for are between $100 to $130. Now, I would quite happily pay $100 to $130 because I know I'm pretty much more guaranteed to get a better haircut. Then I'm never, ever, ever going to go to someone that charges under 50 because it's like the same thing that Alex was talking about. I'm like, oh, I'd be concerned. Are they inexperienced? Are they underqualified? Am I going to get a good result? I would doubt that based on the price that they're charging. So it does play into it. That's the psychology of sales, right? You've got to be conscious of where am I pricing myself in the market and what's that going to attract? And is it going to be perceived that it's actually not valuable because I'm undercharging? Yeah. So good. Thanks for sharing, Alex. Amazing. Anyone else have any questions or thoughts? No, all good. All right, we'll finish up because we're 10 past. Appreciate you sticking around. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, like I said, my DMs are open. Otherwise, bring it to the session tomorrow. I'm really excited to introduce you to Leader and we'll be diving into strategy. So come back and bring your pen and paper and I look forward to seeing you then. And make sure you share your takeaways so I can choose the winners for tomorrow. All right, lovely ladies, thank you so much for joining me and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Thank you.